Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. We are going to bookend the Arizona Coyotes 1.0 with one final video. Never done this before. My top 10 favorite players for the Coyotes since I've been a fan. Completely biased, try not to let outside forces affect my decisions. If you don't know when I became a Coyotes fan, about 2009, 2010, that playoff series against Detroit where they lost in game 7. Became a bit of a casual fan, not watching every game, only important games, if anything, only the playoffs. A year after, they faced Detroit again in the playoffs and get swept. And then 2012, the magical year in the playoffs that kind of firmly set in place me being a fan of the Coyotes. And then the lockout happened. That wasn't really fun. And then around 2013, 14, started to watch almost every game. And then it kind of snowballed into watching pretty much 99.99% of every game since 2014. Started a channel in 2016. And here we are. So if you don't see, guys like Roenick or Keith Tkachuk, wasn't a fan of the Coyotes from that era. So this should be a snapshot of my era of the Arizona Coyotes. 3 honorable mentions before we get to the top 10. Nick Schmaltz, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Keith Yandel. 3 huge names, and they didn't make the cut. Almost. Nick Schmaltz almost made the top 10. But for number 10, a pure biased pick. I doubt anybody's going to have this guy on the list. I model my hockey style after him. I'm a defenseman in whatever leagues I play, adult beer league. Maybe I take defending way too much in beer league, but let's get into it. Hopefully I spell his name right. Let's get into this. I could have just wrote his nickname, which was the Hammer. Pretty sure it's 1R. Yeah, we got it. Nicholas Hjalmarsson, who we acquired from the Chicago Blackhawks. 4 seasons with the Coyotes, injured in 3 out of those 4 seasons. But man, did this guy ever defend. He cut off plays. He ate pucks for breakfast. Fearless in the face of shooters. I honestly looked up to him to be that reliable defenseman. Don't complain, just be solid, be stoic. We haven't really replaced Hjalmarsson since he retired. It's pretty much a defensive style type of defenseman that we haven't seen since him. He's a unique player, doesn't come around often, never really complains, just a solid brick wall as a defenseman to do whatever he can to get pucks away from his goaltender. I really loved him and really made me fall in love with the defensive position because that's, I wasn't always a defenseman when I was younger, loved being a winger, but as I grew older, became more of that responsible defensive type player. So we'll go with number 9, the longest tenured active Coyote on this list. A little bit of a hint there. We'll go with the Sheriff Lawson Crouse. 8 seasons for the Coyotes, and his first year with the Coyotes was a full season, not like someone else on this list. 3 straight seasons of 20 goals recently under Andre Tourigny. He's been through it all. He's been through Dave Tippett. He's been through Rick Tocchet. I guess this is his 3rd rebuild now. If Chychrun was still on the team, he and Chychrun would be, one of the most loyal and committed Coyotes on the team. Unfortunately, Chychrun had enough and requested a trade, but Crouse, he's committed, he's loyal, he loves Arizona. He got married, started a family in Arizona, a dog family, I believe. 6'4", 215 pounds, a Bill Armstrong type player, which is probably why he's lasted this long and hasn't been traded. He could thank his genetics for that. Wish he could be a bit more aggressive at times, but just that leadership, commitment to Arizona gets him on this list. That power forward type of player. He gets a bit gritty at times as well. Never crosses the line at all. Maybe sort of like a gentle giant, I would say. That's what I mean by I want some more aggression out of him. But love this guy and deserves to be on the list. We'll go with number 8. The first Well, we got a defenseman and a forward. What position are we missing? Go with Darcy Kuemper, one of my favorite goaltenders ever to wear the Coyotes jersey next to one other goaltender on this list. He played 4 seasons with the Coyotes, getting a .920 save percentage and a .243 goals against average in the playoffs. Yes, playoffs with the Coyotes against the Avalanche in the bubble. Even though they lost 7-1 in those last 2 games of the series, he comes out with a .913 save percentage. He was so good in the bubble, getting the win against Nashville Predators and securing one win against the Colorado Avalanche. Just trying to keep the team in it, even though it was a very lopsided match against the Avalanche. I love the way he plays the style of goaltending, which I love, which is smooth, solid, purposeful, doesn't move around too much, doesn't swim in the crease. I see a lot of Darcy Kuemper and Connor Ingram, and I think Ingram could reach that level of Kuemper. When we traded Kuemper for that first-round pick to the Avalanche, I knew he would win the Cup. There was even like a conditional draft pick where if the Avalanche won the Cup that year, they would send the Coyotes, I think it was a 5th draft pick maybe. I loved seeing him raise the Cup. He went through a battle in those playoffs, and then he secured the bag with the Capitals. And now his career has kind of gone sideways a bit amongst other players on this list. Also, he had a fight against Matthew Tkachuk when he was a member of the Calgary Flames. I love that fight. I was at the game. The crowd was roaring. Seeing that fight highlight really brings a tear to my eye. Just that passion from Kuemper. Really miss him. And hopefully his career turns around in Washington. I'm going number 7. Sure, this guy is going to be on everybody's list. Just depends how high you put him. Conor Garland, only 3 seasons with the Coyotes, but erupted into a huge fan favorite. This motor spirit, energizer bunny type of player. Small statured, but played with a lot of heart. Played way bigger than what says, on his height and on Elite Prospects or Hockey Reference. He was part of that Tucson Roadrunners group of players who would come up and just establish their NHL careers. Guys like Michael Bunting, Michael Carcone. Conor Garland was that guy we called up and never looked back. And just a fearless type of player, going into a dirty area, scoring a goal by getting the puck banking off his face and into the net. Honestly, if there was a reality I would wish to live in, it would be one where we didn't trade Conor Garland. I think he's a great player to have in your bottom 6. He could move up in the lineup as well. He's got some skill along with his just commitment to playing the right way of hockey. However, he was a necessary casualty to move on from Oliver Ekman-Larsson's contract and acquiring, the first ever sniper in Coyotes franchise history in Dylan Guenther. So I guess, that trade had to happen. Sad to see Garland go. And getting Guenther back in that trade and seeing the rise of Dylan Guenther has made this trade more palatable. And we'll see how far Garland goes in the playoffs currently with the Vancouver Canucks. I'm recording this video before round 1 is over. So let's go with number 6. Maybe a bit low for some, but we're going to go with Mike Smith, the hero of the 2012 playoffs. One of the best goaltending performances I have seen in the playoffs. Made me fall in love with this team. Mike Smith put on an incredible performance. If you hear this number, I'm going to say in 16 games in the 2012 playoffs, he comes out with a .944 save percentage, a 1.99 goals against average. Those are insane numbers, video game numbers. Like, I honestly can't even believe it. I don't even think you could beat that. Mike Smith, unbelievable in that playoff run to the conference final. He also scored a goal. He has 1 goal on his resume against Detroit in 2013. And he also has that trick shot goal in the All-Star game in 2017 where he shot a puck from the opposing red line, the icing line, into a little small hole all the way across the ice. That was unbelievable to watch, and Mike Smith deserved to be an all-star for the Coyotes in that 2017 year. Unfortunately, he was unceremoniously traded to the Calgary Flames, and then he was moved on to the Edmonton Oilers. Didn't really get as far as he did with the Arizona Coyotes. So then we'll go at number 5, the second Coyotes draft pick on this list. The first one was Garland. He was drafted 5th overall, and 5th round, not 5th overall. And then we go to Christian Dvorak, who was drafted in the 2nd round. 5 seasons with the Coyotes. He was 20 years old and brought up to the Coyotes after only playing 1 more year in junior after being drafted. And he was given the duty as either number 1 center or number 2 center, depending on how Marty Hanzal, whether Hanzal was healthy or not. Just a lot of pressure and responsibility to give to a 20-year-old to be a top 2 centerman with the Coyotes, and he did a pretty good job. He was a great defensive centerman, a great two-way forward. He has some sneaky skill, a great shot, a great backhand, but not consistently enough showing off his offensive skill. I'm still surprised we traded him for a 1st-round pick. His career is kind of squandered in Montreal. It's been riddled with injuries the past 3 seasons now. Christian Dvorak just never smiled when he scores. Ice cold water running through his veins. And what else do I have here? He was one of my favorite players. The reason why he was put into such a tough position as a number 1 or number 2 center was because John Shaika decided to buy out Antoine Vermette, and that was a mistake, one of his first mistakes as a Coyotes GM, because Dylan Strome wasn't ready, and then you had to rely on Christian Dvorak to play higher in the lineup than what he was prepared for. If you kept Vermette, then you have a Hanzal, Vermette, Dvorak, I think was Chip Shure at the time. That would be a good group of centermen, and then you could wait and let Dylan Strome bake. But buying out Antoine Vermette just forced the fan base and the team to be worried about Dylan Strome. We needed him to be ready, but in reality, if we did some right movements, we didn't need Dylan Strome to be ready so quickly, and forced Dvorak into his development to play hard minutes against some tough competition in their 1st line or 2nd line. So Christian Dvorak drafted in the 2nd round. He's number 5. Let's go with number 4. Another Coyote draft pick, 16th overall. Maybe a bit high for some, considering how his career ended with the Coyotes, but still going to give it to him. Jacob Chychrun, number 4, 7 seasons with the Coyotes, 18 years old. This guy plays more than 60 games played. He gets drafted, and immediately Dave Tippett is like, I'm throwing you in there, playing like 18 minutes a night. A solid defenseman with really good upside, really good offensive skill. He led the defensemen in scoring in that shortened 2021 season with 18 goals. Led the whole league in goals as a defenseman that year. He was a minute muncher. He was sort of that Keith Yandel replacement, that offensive D type of guy. And he was doing a really good job until near the end, where I guess he had enough with the rebuild, wanted to get traded. We trade him for a 1st-round pick to Ottawa. And then unfortunately for his career, he doesn't go to a playoff contender. He finds himself in another rebuild type of position. And now I guess there's rumors that he wants out of Ottawa. And we'll see from there where he goes. Maybe he reunites with his best friends in Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz, or maybe goes home to Florida. That could be an interesting place for him as well. So we'll go with number 3 here. I don't think anybody's going to have him in their top 10. I know a lot of you don't like him, but again, it's my list. I fell in love with this guy. So apologies for bringing up some bad memories, but Mighty Max Max Domi, drafted by the Coyotes, played 3 seasons with the Coyotes. It's still his longest tenure with an NHL team playing with the Coyotes. He got traded to Montreal and then bounced around, I think 7 teams now. He's finally found himself on the Leafs in the playoffs. Again, recording this before round 1 is over. I liked how he's played so far. That sort of pesty, feisty scorer with some upside, offensive upside. He's got great skill as well, just not disciplined enough. Maybe doesn't have that IQ high enough to not put his team in bad situations by taking bad penalties or making poor decisions. But I love the passion this guy brings. If he could just be a little bit smarter, he'd be a great player. There's some similarities between Domi and Garland, but Garland never crosses that line. He knows to play within the boundaries, whereas Domi crosses the line a little bit too often. But I loved it when the Coyotes drafted him. He had insane skill paired with Anthony Duclair, and then Marty Hanzal was their centerman. The killer Ds, or the double Ds, as Tyson Nash called them for a very brief moment. I'm sure the media team said, Tyson, you can't call them the double Ds. And I think it was Matt McConnell who nicknamed them the killer Ds. Love this guy. He was the last jersey I bought with a player's name on it, and that was a hard trade to experience, but there were harder trades after him. But he was the first one to really break the ice and make me as a fan realize that, your favorite players are going to get traded. Are you going to stay loyal to the team? And thankfully, I did. So we'll go to the top 2, which I'm sure all of you can guess who the top 2 are. But I'll start with number 2. 7 seasons with the Coyotes. Technically, it's 8, but he only played 3 games in that first season, so I'm not going to count that. That was the season Krause and Chychrun played their rookie years, but he only played 3 games, so I'll ignore that season. 7 seasons with the Coyotes, back-to-back 30-goal seasons, another committed player to Arizona, another leader on this team, wears the A patch just like Krause. And he's second all-time in Coyotes franchise history on points, on goals, behind number 1. I don't count Winnipeg Jets history when I think about and talk about, points and goals. It's about the Coyotes only, especially this video. He is the second best Coyotes player I have seen, and I think a lot of people would say the second best Coyotes player ever. I think he is the number 1 offensive forward this team has ever seen, the number 1 greatest Coyotes goal scorer we've ever seen. It's Clayton Keller, and he's still so young, so much skill, so much impact. You tune in to watch Keller, especially during those dark times, among other dark times in the past, in that 2021-2022 season, the year after that as well, when it was just Andre Tourigny and Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller. They were electric to watch. Mullet magic, just that chemistry between Schmaltz and Keller. It's hard to replicate and it's rare. And I'm glad that we were able to watch Keller and Schmaltz do their magic. Such a great player, especially on the power play as well. And there was a sort of brief moment in Rick Tockett's last few years with the Coyotes where Clayton Keller, his point totals weren't going as high. Maybe he was slipping. I was a bit worried what type of player would he become. But under Andre Tourigny, he gets better offensively, he gets better defensively, and he's just an all-around package, a 4-time All-Star with the Coyotes. Just love Clayton Keller, and this team would be in a very rough shape if Clayton Keller wasn't here the past 7 seasons. Let me go with the obvious. Number 1 here, the number 1 goal scorer and point getter for the Coyotes franchise. It's Shane Doan. I honestly don't even want to talk about his on-ice production. Yes, he's a great player, a great leader, a great fearless competitor, plays with passion, plays with heart. He's everything you want in a hockey player, but off the ice, he's just that and so much more. Such a great human, a humanitarian. He is a reason why this Coyotes fan base loves and desires this connection and community the Arizona Coyote fan base has built up. Even after leaving the Coyotes, he still makes time for Coyotes fans and the team itself. Flying back to see his son's debut, scoring 2 goals, and Josh Doan's debut, being so ecstatic. That was his Stanley Cup, like I always say. Coming back for the last game at Mullet and the last game ever for the Arizona Coyotes 1.0. The Coyotes are a huge part of him, and even seeing fans. I met him, I ran into him on the street last summer right after he moved to Toronto, took his time with me, took his time talking to my significant other as well. He just wanted to get to know more about me. He loved that I was a Coyotes fan living in Toronto. He didn't fake it at all. His wife was there too. His wife was lovely to talk to as well. He makes time for you. And everyone who's ever interacted with Shane Doan is just 100% positive. And he is the face of this franchise. And when you see the Howling Coyote, when you see the Kachina logo, when you see someone wear it out on the street, you represent Shane Doan, and Shane Doan represents this fan base and that logo. And I can't say enough good things about Shane Doan, and scoring that hat trick with .01 seconds left on the clock, his first ever and only hat trick. He deserves everything. He deserves all the good, all the positivity in the world. And I really love how Josh Doan has him to lean on while going through this unprecedented move. And maybe we all could rely on Shane Doan as well. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Let me know, who are your favorite players as being a fan for the Coyotes. I'm sure a lot of you are fans of Jeremy Roenick, Keith Tkachuk, Teppo Numminen, Verbata, Vermette, Hansel, maybe Bodker. A lot of good players have come through the desert, and let me know who they are. So as always, thank you for your support. If you'd like to see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.